When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
We're excited to announce that our very own podcasting platform, Zencastr, has become a new sponsor to the show. Check out the podcast discount link in our show notes and stay tuned for why we love using Zen for the podcast.
You're listening to the Archaeology Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Archaeotech Podcast, episode 143. I'm your host, Chris Webster, with my co-host, Paul Zimmerman. It's the 2020 Holiday Gift Guide, where Paul and I try to talk about things that are not drones and range from a few dollars to all the dollars. Let's get to it. All right, welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome, Paul. How you doing, man?
I'm doing okay, Chris. Let's see. Today is December the 3rd, and the last time we recorded was just before Thanksgiving holiday. What's a holiday? Holiday. And you were visiting family over it, weren't you?
Yeah, pretty much still there. So we're staying not too far away from my sister-in-law and brother-in-law's house, and my mother-in-law. They live literally just like 2 minutes down the road in the same development. So we see them all the time. We're kind of like, even though, you know, we're all sort of social distancing together, but in our own houses, like we come in contact with these guys all the time. So they're kind of in our circle. So that's what we're doing. And we're over here now, actually having dinner tonight. So, and this is where we'll be for Christmas and New Year's. And then we're off to Florida. So back to social distancing by ourselves.
Awesome.
There you go.
Yeah, we had, my daughter came down from college and spent the holiday with us most of a week. And so it was really nice having her back. But she had some projects, end of semester projects to finish up. So she realized she wasn't getting them done around us and went back up to her apartment at school. So, it's all winding down now, the end of the semester, and we'll see how things shape up over the next month here. But, Thanksgiving is always the start of the winter holiday season here in the U.S. and followed up, by the big gift giving season. So that's today's topic, right?
Absolutely. That's what we're going to talk about, our sort of holiday gift guide. And it doesn't matter what holiday you support. You can buy your favorite archaeologist or tech enthusiast any one of these things over the winter, because for archaeologists specifically, the winter, kind of the whole thing is a holiday, right? You know, some people might get a week off. Sometimes archaeologists get 3 or 4 months of forced vacation because there's no work to do. So buy them something nice, and they can use it this next field season or what have you. So now's a good time, even if you're, like I said, even regardless of the holiday you support or want to go to. These are all good gift ideas pretty much any time, but we're going to package them all into this episode right now.
Well, we were discussing this beforehand for our listeners. We decided to break this down roughly into price range brackets, so you can more or less tailor something for the person that you're intending. And we're going to ramp up, but we'll start down at the low end, what I decided to call stocking stuffers. And this, I just meant like little things. Yeah. Not very much money, probably under $20, maybe under $15. And so let's start there. Did you have anything on the list? I see the ones that I put, but I don't know if you had anything in particular that you wanted to discuss, Chris.
You kind of nailed it, to be honest. So I didn't feel the need to put anything else on there. But yeah, I can start with the top one that you had on the list there, USB-C adapters, and really, honestly, any small adapters and things like that. But you probably put USB-C on there specifically because, well, a lot of computers and equipment are coming out these days that are USB-C only. And a lot of people have, like for example, the microphone I'm speaking to you on right now has a USB connection on it, USB-C connection on it. And, you have to plug it into your computer using either USB-C or regular USB with an adapter. So, and my computer is a 2017 MacBook Pro, and I've got 4 USB-C ports, and that's it. So, and if you don't know what USB-C is, it looks like the Android port, except it's round. It's got rounded edges. So
pretty much everything is going USB-C now. So you're going to find it on all your newer cell phones, on all your actually lots of devices that don't even need the higher capacities that USB-C can do in terms of data or power. But you probably the archaeologists in your life are probably like you and I are, Chris, and that you have a lot of legacy things that have the old USB-A kind of connectors. That's the one that we've gotten used to for the last couple decades, which is the flattened rectangle. And so if you have, actually, my microphone has a cable that goes to one of those USB-A connectors. If I want to plug that into my work computer, which I do sometimes, the work computer is a 2017 MacBook Air. It only has USB-C connectors. That's the little, like Chris said, looks kind of like an Android connector. It's a little flattened oval. Looks kind of like if you shrunk a racetrack real small and squashed it a bit.
Yeah, exactly.
So I put this on the list because this is something that they're tiny. They get lost all the time. Put it as a stocking stuffer because it's not something very thoughtful or, meaningful as a gift, but you get 3 packs of them for around $10. And it's something that everybody finds useful and will for the upcoming few years until our older equipment phases out and we get newer equipment. So that was the first one I put down. Another one I put down, I'm actually going to pair the next two things I discussed here. This is kind of a weird one, but I was looking through the forestry suppliers catalog yesterday, the online one, and they had a bunch of something that I hadn't thought of before, which were little clip-on microscopes for your cell phone, right? Little clip that goes right over the camera lens, and you can use that to get really close in. I've had ones like this that weren't for microscopes. They were, wide-angle lenses, for example. And I had never thought of the utility of having one as a microscope clip-on. The price range was anywhere between about $10 and $15. Again, these aren't high-quality things, but this is something that I could see just throwing into my dig bag. So if I have to take a really close look at something, I want to take a look at the temper in a potsherd, for example. Throw that right on my cell phone. I've got a little handheld microscope. Didn't cost me much extra, so I thought that would be kind of a cute gadget for a stocking stuffer for the archaeologist in your life.
Yeah, and kind of along those lines, that made me think of the Olo clip, which
exactly.
Trust me, this is not in the range of probably stocking stuffer territory, although some of their accessories could be. I'm just looking on their website right now, and hopefully this is still going on when you're there, but they've got some ridiculous sales going on, like half price on some stuff. They are clips that are like telephoto and macro lenses and stuff like that for your smartphone. And these are high-end lenses too. These aren't some, garbage. They're really high-end lenses and they clip nicely on. And a lot of problems with these things are, just so you know, if you've got some special case on your phone, like a waterproof OtterBox case or something like that, probably not going to work. You have to click it. It's designed to be a certain distance from the camera lens. So you might need to take your case off in order to use it. But if you're using it in like a lab setting or something like that Paul said, or even out in the field for that matter, if you're in a position where you can just flip your case off real quick and put this clip on, it might be really super helpful. And then because a lot of us carry a 10X lens with us, but I can't take a picture of that. I can't take a picture with my 10X, but if I use this little lens here, then I could take a picture of something and snap a picture and text it to somebody in the lab and say, what do you think about this? Or something like that. So that'd be really cool.
Yeah, no, I want one. So if anybody wants to give me one, I'll happily receive it. Thank you on air.
Nice.
I don't know what I would use it for in particular. I don't have any burning need for it right now, but that's kind of one of the fun things about the tech gifts is, some of it's just like, wouldn't it be great? Like when you're a kid and you get those Christmas gifts, the toys. Yeah. This would be a fun toy to have. I'm sure I could find a use for it once I had it.
I'm sure of it.
I said that this was kind of a two-parter. The other thing that I always think of when I think of stocking stuffers, at least this is what our family does, is we end up with, especially for the kids, we end up with gift cards, either the generic like Amex or Visa or whatever, prepaid debit cards, or ones that could go for Apple or for Google App Stores or for Amazon and so on. And, that's fine. And those are always useful. I mean, I'd rather have $25 than not have $25. And if you want to give me that, happy to use it. But it dawned on me, a really kind of slightly more personal way of dealing with that, if you're giving to the archaeologists in your life, is why not give them a forestry suppliers gift card?
Yeah.
And we probably ought to see if we can get them to advertise on us on the network. Right? But that's something that is more thoughtful, I think, than just the Amazon gift card, because it tells that archaeologist that, hey, I know what rings your bells. I know what pushes your buttons. I know what you're doing when you're sitting up late at night. You're flipping through that catalog going, I could use this, and new gators, and look at this. I could get a new Marshalltown and blah, blah, blah. So that I just thought was kind of a little more targeted stocking stuffer gift.
Nice. And I mean, like an Apple gift card is actually a really good thing, because there's a ton of apps that we talk about on this show that people can use. And, sometimes you just don't, we get so used to downloading free apps that we look at a $2.99, $3.99, $5.99 app, even, $10 app. And we're like, nah, I don't think so. Doesn't seem worth it to me, because we're so conditioned that, apps are free. So, and archaeologists are always on a budget. So even giving them a $20 Apple gift card that they can put in their iTunes store, you can't guarantee they're not going to buy the newest Taylor Swift album with it, but you can at least give them the ability to save a little cash and maybe buy that app that would come in useful, like Theodolite Pro or something like that. So you can get rid of the ads and use that nice app or tap forms or, whatever the case may be. So anyway, that's another good gift. I think gift cards are always a good idea for people who travel a lot, because you never know if you're going to give them something that you're going to burden them with that maybe is kind of cool, but now they got to carry it around. So a gift card allows them to make that choice.
Exactly.
Well, moving right along, we've got our under $50 category here, and that's somewhat subject. And I'm gonna jump right to one of the ones that's kind of my favorite that you put on the list here, Paul, which is a power bank. Because I'll tell you what, I mean, batteries are getting better and better. I got my first new iPhone in the last couple of years. I've got the iPhone 12 Pro Max that just came a couple weeks ago, and I'll tell you what, you don't realize how bad your battery is getting on your phone until you get a new one. Like I'm on this thing all day long, from probably 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning when I'm just looking at news and stuff like that, checking up on, events of the night. And then throughout the day, I'm doing things, whether it's listening to music, podcasts, doing a workout, just doing stuff on my phone. We were driving over here from our office, and I was on a call while my wife was driving, and I'm sitting there right on my phone and running through some clients' account stuff, and just doing all kinds of things. I mean, I'm using it for all sorts of things. And this phone, the battery is just going all day long, and it's amazing. But the reality is most of us don't have brand new phones, and I'm going to have this one for another couple of years. So before long, it's, going to start to tank. But I've always got, at the very least, a couple of 10,000 milliamp battery packs with me. I've got two in my bag right now, one that just has a couple regular USB plugs on it, and another one that has plugs on it, but also I can set my phone right on top of it. In fact, I can set my AirPods on top of it as well, and it will do that, the key or Qi, however you pronounce that, charging method. So wireless charging. And awesome. That's super cool. And I think 10,000 is probably the least you want to get somebody these days, because most smartphones, you can charge that up at least 1.5 times on 10,000 milliamps. And my God, you can get them for almost nothing, right?
Right. I put on our list here that we're reading off of. We've had to buy a bunch of them because we're doing so much online learning. So it's keeping the students' iPads running through the day on Zoom is a real challenge.
Yeah.
So each of the classrooms, we bought a few of these and been getting ones, 20,000 milliamp hour ones for around $40. I've seen them on sale from reputable companies for as low as $30. So, that's something that, again, it might not be the most personal, but it's definitely something that everybody's going to get a lot of use out of. Do you have any brands that you've gravitated towards?
Actually, yeah. And I'm going to link to this one on here because this brand has just been so phenomenal for me. But the Zero Lemon brand, and I'm looking right now. I mean, just check this out. I've got two 30,000 milliamp Zero Lemon rugged batteries, right? And I've probably had them since 2015 or so. I think I bought them for that big project we were doing at China Lake. Right. Because you can plug 4 devices into that at one time and charge them all simultaneously. So it breaks. I didn't require, in fact, I bought Zero Lemon 10,000 milliamp for everybody to have, but I also figured, hey, at lunch or something like that, we're all using tablets. We could just charge up while we're at lunch and I could plug everybody into this thing and have it. Never really worked out that way too much because, we were pretty efficient on battery life and they all had their own 10,000 milliampers, and I let them just keep those because, like I said, they're a dime a dozen these days. But my wife and I, we use these things all the time because when we're in our RV and we're boondocking, which means we're not hooked up to any resources. Like, for example, in the end of June, we're going to be at the Everglades National Park in the particular campground that we reserved. No power, no water, no sewer. So we're fully self-contained at this site. And when we're running on our inverter, not all of our plugs are active. So the ones right next to our bed are not active. And so we each put one of those 30,000 milliamp chargers next to our bed and just plug in our phone, our watch, whatever we need right there, because the plugs don't work on the inverter back there. And and I swear to God, just charging your phone overnight, and I leave it plugged in, and I'm running a clock and all that stuff, and I probably get 3 or 4 days on it before I have to charge that battery back up again. It's just phenomenal. Fantastic. Yeah. And the newer one that I've got, so we got the older one, and I've got one that's about probably 2 years newer. Again, these were like $150 at the time. I'm looking at one for $46.98 on Amazon right now. But the newer one has a USB-C out as well. And a couple times I've left my stupid computer charger, my computer cord at our office, and I get home and I've got to do something and my computer's dead. Well, I can't really run the computer off that battery because it doesn't have the wattage to keep the computer going. But if I power the computer down and I plug it into it, I can get 20, 30, 40% charge in probably 20, 30 minutes off that battery bank, and then power back up and use it. And if I want, I've left it plugged in overnight and had 100% charge in the morning and only used half the battery. So it is just phenomenal. And they're rugged. I mean, a lot of these have little solar panels on the back. So if you wanted to leave it out, you could kind of trickle charge it. They got lights on them sometimes. I'm looking at the newer versions here. Oh, this new one's got wireless charging on the outside. It's only $38.99. It might be time to upgrade.
I'm going to lose you here.
Anyway, Zero Lemon. I love the Zero Lemon brand. It's just, they're really good at what they do. I've never had a problem with battery failing. Their quality is really high. I'm just super impressed by them. So we'll link to that for sure. But just search cordless wireless power bank or something like that on Amazon, and you'll find any number of them.
Yeah, I've just cautioned people that there's a lot of really cheap stuff on there. So you probably don't want to go for the least expensive one that you find at any particular power capacity, just because there's a good chance you get junk. So I'm going to just throw in a couple brands that we've gotten that are on the cheaper side, but we've been really happy with the quality of their build and their reliability. So Anker, A-N-K-E-R, or Aukey, I guess is a pronunciation, A-U-K-E-Y. Both of those have been on the cheaper end, but not overdone with needless features that you're not going to use, and also well-designed quality construction. They don't catch fire as far as we know. Which is a really good thing when you use them in a school.
Yeah. Not catching fire is often a trait I look for in things.
Yeah.
And I will say too, the weight, you really got to consider the weight. Like especially if you're carrying this in a field bag, because that 30,000 milliamp battery, I mean, that doesn't come for free, right? That's a lithium ion battery in there. And I don't care what the new technology is. If you get the ruggedized one, it probably weighs 2 or 3 pounds, which is pretty significant, Yeah. You got to look at what you need. And if you look on your phone specs or your tablet specs, it probably says it's got like if you don't know what milliamps are, you don't have to know. It's like a gas tank. Think of it like a full gas tank. So 30,000 milliamps is 30 milliamp hours. Your phone is probably somewhere around 4,000 to 6,000 milliamp hours for its battery size. And so is your tablet. So if you look at say 6,000, that means you can typically charge it up 5 times. Now that's if you've got perfect efficiency, perfect charging, no loss in the cable. That's never going to happen, right? So just take one of those off and assume at least 4 charges with it, if that's the case. But just do the math and say, well, my phone usually dies around lunch. I need something to get me through the day. So buy a 10,000. That should be plenty. But you got to remember to charge it up at the end of the day and keep that thing topped off. But yeah, just buy the one that you need. You might be tempted by the 30s. If you want to get more than one, that's fine. But if you're going to carry in your field bag, I'd probably get the size you need and not necessarily carry around the heavy one if you don't need it. So, well, I think that's, we killed it with just a couple things on this first segment. Hopefully we can get through more than this. But let's wrap this up and come back on the other side and talk about some more fun things. Back in a second. Chris Webster here for the Archaeology Podcast Network. We strive for high quality interviews and content so you can find information on any topic in archaeology from around the world. One way we do that is by recording interviews with our hosts and guests located in many parts of the world all at once. We do that through the use of Zencastr. That's Zencastr. Zencastr allows us to record high quality audio with no stress on the guest. Just send them a link to click on and that's it. Zencastr does the rest. They even do automatic transcriptions. Check out the link in the show notes for 30% off your first 3 months, or go to zencastr.com and use the code Archaeotech. That's ARCHAEOTECH. Looking to expand your knowledge of X-rays and imaging in the archaeology field? Then check out An Introduction to Paleoradiography, a short online course offering professional training for archaeologists and affiliated disciplines. Created by archaeologist, radiographer, and lecturer James Elliott, the content of this course is based upon his research and teaching experience in higher education. It is approved by the Chartered Institute for Archaeologists as 4 hours of training. That's in the UK, for those of you that don't know. So don't miss out on this exciting opportunity for professional and personal development. For more information on pricing and course structure, visit paleoimaging.com. That's PALEO imaging.com, and look for the link in the show notes to this episode.
Hi, welcome back to the Architect Podcast, episode 143. Today's topic is our holiday gift guide for the techie archaeologist in your life. We left it off in the under $50 bracket, and we spent a lot of time talking about power banks because that's something that's extremely useful to any archaeologist, any field archaeologist, but even non-archaeologists I think would find them useful if you get something that's decent. We've all gotten those freebie little sticks from this and that. They're almost in your cereal boxes now. Some of them are great, some of them are terrible. But we were talking about a step up, something that could actually keep you running if you're off the grid for a bit, like you are sometimes, Chris, or if you're doing a lot of heavy use on your tablet or your phone. Next one that I put on the list was a Roku. Now, Roku, I said this one in particular, you could compare it quite favorably to things like the Google Chromecast or Amazon's Fire Stick, but I went with Roku because I've got a lot of familiarity with them. We have them on every TV that we've had. And my daughter has one. And it's tied into our accounts and everything. And I was thinking in particular, they're not big. Even the box ones are very small and portable, but they make the sticks that just plug right into the HDMI port. And that's something that I thought would be extremely useful to anybody that's spending a lot of time away from home, especially if they're in hotels that have TVs that have HDMI. If they can plug in, get that stick on the network, bam, they've got access to their Netflix and their YouTube channels and whatever other channels that they've installed. And, again, not to be a plug specifically for Roku, but it's what I can vouch for, that I've been using them for years and really like them. Again, it's one of a class of different kind of media devices. You're probably all Apple TV yourself, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a few of those, and we've actually had one that we traveled around with a lot. But, one thing I was going to ask you is, because I don't have, I've never actually used a Roku stick. We used to have a Roku TV in the house that we own, but of course sold that when we moved out of the house into the RV. But I'm wondering, because I always thought this was a good thing to have when you're living in hotel rooms. Like you said, you can just plug it into the HDMI port, because most hotels these days have a TV with an HDMI port. The problem that you run into is the hotel Wi-Fi. Yeah. And because a lot of them have that extra screen that comes up, that port that you have to go log in through. And it's not like a web page or something like that. Even if it is a web page, that still provides its own problems. But if it's got that thing that comes up that does that, do you know of a way around that with the Roku sticks right now?
I haven't actually tried that with the Roku. I've never been in a place that I've had to deal with that. What we have done, like when we're doing a VRBO or a, I can't think of the name of the big
Airbnb.
One. Airbnb, thank you.
Yeah, Airbnb, yeah.
Yeah, the one that's basically like the Kleenex brand name for or Jell-O. Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
So when we've gone like on vacation and you're in somebody's house, I don't know how frequent that is, how common that is for archaeologists to live in, not a hotel for a bit, but someplace that, and in those cases, it's never been a problem. We just plug in, put it on the network. And then instead of having to use the smart TV functions or the very old Roku or the Apple TV that hasn't been updated in months or nothing at all because they just have, local cable at the house that we're staying at. Great. I've got access to all the stuff the streaming stuff that I care about because it's on the internet and it's on that one device. Yeah. I mean, I could look at it on my laptop too, but if you're trying to wind down at the end of the day, it's, especially if you're not by yourself, if you're with other people, it's more fun to sit there, on the couch and look at the TV, watch the Netflix up there rather than crowd around your laptop.
Well, hey, we can combine two gifts with that because I'm going to link to something here because you got my wheels spinning on that, because archaeologists typically don't stay in Airbnbs. A lot of times, an Airbnb is going to be, especially wherever you need to be, there might not even be any, or there might be too expensive, because chances are, let's be honest, your company's paying for some cheap hotel for you to stay in. So you're probably going to stay in that. But if you're given cash per diem or you're looking for a place to stay on the weekends, again, Airbnb tends to be, sometimes not in the price range an archaeologist might want. But guess what? They have gift cards. I just looked it up and it's true. And I'm going to link to it in the gift card section. So buy your favorite archaeologist an Airbnb gift card so they can have a nice night in a house with a kitchen and all the amenities, maybe a couple nights, maybe a weekend. That would be a fantastic gift, I think, for a traveling archaeologist. They're like, here, keep the Roach Motel for a little while and stay someplace nice. That'd be pretty cool. All right. Where are we at?
Well, we have one more under 50, or do we want to push on to that $50 to $100 range?
Well, I'll just mention this really fast. More and more people are having smart watches, right? And I'm, of course, an Apple Watch fan. If you know somebody with an Apple Watch and maybe they didn't get this, Apple just recently came out with, in the last few months, their Sport Loop, which I got one with my new Apple Watch, and I absolutely love it. It's a silicone band, but it has no connection on it. It's a solid band that goes from end to end on the watch, and it's super stretchy, and you have to measure your wrist and send them the size because they've got like 16 different sizes you can get for it. I just did exactly what they said. I got the measurement on my wrist in centimeters, put it in the thing, and said, you need this one. And guess what? It works great. It's not too tight. It's not too loose. I can slip it over my hand real easy, and I've got big meat fists, and it still goes over there nice and easy, and it hasn't stretched out. And it's a great band for working out in. It can get sweaty. You don't have something you're going to catch it on and maybe unhook it accidentally. Really great for archaeologists crashing through the trees and things like that. So I'm sure they have similar things for other smartwatches, but I'm only aware of the Apple Watch ones. So it's a really cool new band that I think is ideally suited for people that work in those types of environments.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right, let's take it up a notch.
Okay, take it up a notch. We're still talking about techy archaeologists. So I'm going to kick it off with this bit of tech that came out recently. It's kind of hard to get your hands on at the moment. So we'll see what happens. We're recording on the 3rd. This will drop in a week, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that'll hopefully before Christmas and Hanukkah, if you're looking at getting one of these, they'll be a little more available. But Raspberry Pi just released a new model called the 400, which is basically the Raspberry Pi 4 embedded into a little keyboard. And on all the tech blogs and all the tech websites and such, people are just going ape over these because if you get a Raspberry Pi, and I've had a bunch of them and I love using them and I play with them all the time. When you first get one of the problems is you've got to then go dig out that USB keyboard, and you got to go dig out a mouse that is on you that has USB, and you got to find these pieces and hook it up to a monitor someplace and find where did I put an HDMI cable and all that sort of stuff. You don't have to do that with this. It's the keyboard is built in. You'll still need an external mouse, but it has the 2 HDMI ports on the back, and it's that Raspberry Pi 4, which is a pretty strong computer given its tiny size and low cost. So This thing costs, the list price is about $70, and I have not been able to find it anywhere for less than 100 right now. Okay. So it's in high demand as we're speaking, but it looked like a really cool way, especially if you've got somebody that just likes to tinker, or if you have a child that is interested in learning about computers. You can give them something that's cheaper than any laptop, can hook up to almost any TV set you've got, and just opens up that whole world of playing around with Raspberry Pis and Linux and the programming that they've got built into it. So it's kind of a fun, easy entry into that world. And it lowers the barrier, not necessarily in price, because it's still more expensive than cobbling together whatever else you can with the Raspberry Pi and whatever pieces you've got in your junk drawer.
Yeah.
But it's a little more aesthetically pleasing. And by not having to cobble it together in quite the same way, makes it something that people, some people are talking about it. Actually, just like I was talking about taking that Roku and hooking it up to the TV set in the hotel, you, with the proper HDMI cable, could just take that Raspberry Pi 400 and hook it up to the TV set in your hotel room. And you don't even necessarily have to have your own laptop. You could bring this thing that doesn't matter if it gets broken or stolen. I mean, it does matter, but would you rather lose a $70 keyboard with a computer built into it, or would you rather lose a $1,200 keyboard if it gets stolen or broken? Right? A keyboard, I mean, a laptop. So it just, if you're not aware of them, if you haven't seen them, you certainly don't have the same news feeds that I do, because there are like 2 or 3 new articles about it every day, and I'm excited about them. I don't think I'll get one myself, but it's something I could definitely see myself having gotten a year ago.
Yeah. It's definitely pretty cool. And I'm linking to their website for the 400. So look around, maybe not have to buy it on their website, but look around for it. So it's a pretty neat little device. I like it. It's amazing what Raspberry Pi has been able to do in the last, God, how long's it been around? 5, 6, 7 years? I can't even remember, but they're just like leaps and bounds on what you can do with these things. Yeah.
I mean, they've spawned a whole field of little itty bitty computers that are cheap, under $100. A lot of them are under $50. Some of them are under $10. And I've bought a whole bunch of different kinds of these things, but I keep on gravitating back to the Raspberry Pis because they have been really rock solid in terms of their construction and in terms of the whole community around them, and finding operating systems that run on them. I can't say enough good things about them. And again, they're fun. It's a project platform that I play on all the time.
Nice. Well, quick fun note. And I don't know if Raspberry Pi has been used for this or not, but I know there's apparently, I was made aware a few months ago of an entire subculture of tinkerers that like to get Microsoft Windows and not necessarily Windows, but Doom. I guess it's the game Doom on various devices that it's not supposed to play that game. Yeah. And this guy hooked up something similar to a Raspberry Pi and basically played it on the small screen of an electronic pregnancy test. Look up. You got to look up Doom pregnancy test. I'm sure that will bring it up.
Oh my God, that is brilliant.
Isn't it though? It was great. He had to do some pretty heavy modifications, but he's clearly playing the game on a pregnancy test.
Oh my God.
So yeah, it was pretty funny. And I've seen people do the same thing with Windows. Like they ported Windows over somehow into that's what made me think about it, onto like really miniature small devices and things where it's just not supposed to be. So, all right, Paul, one of the other things we had here on this range was professional society, local archaeology society memberships. And I'll tell you what, that one really hit home because I've got Society for California Archaeology, Society for Historical Archaeology, and Society for American Archaeology all coming due on January 1st. Why they all come due on the same time, I couldn't tell you, but combined, that's around $300 or $400. If I'm not mistaken, because the SAA is well, yeah, totally. And I had to. Is my SAA one paid for? I've either paid for the conference or I paid for the SAA already because I'm on a panel for the 2021 conference. So you have to pay for something right away. I think it's for the conference, and then I'll just cover the membership when it comes around. But I don't think you can get gift cards for this kind of stuff, and I don't think you can go in and pay somebody else's membership. But you could get them like a Visa gift card or something like that, and say, "Hey, use this to pay for your Archaeology Society membership." If you want to throw some words out, say, "Go get an SAA membership. Go get an SHA membership," or whatever state you're from, state Archaeology Society membership. The state ones are usually a lot cheaper. Yeah, I think the California ones I think the California one's like $90. I think Nevada's like 35 or something like that. So they're usually a lot more affordable. But every archaeologist, whether they like it or not, really should belong to one of the bigger ones, only because, you get the journals when that happens, and you can get them digitally too. So they're not looking for an address to send it to if you're moving around a lot. So it's really nice to get your hands on. I think the SA is probably the better one for that because they have so many different journals. There's at least the 3, like Antiquity, Advances, and then
Latin American Antiquity.
There's Latin American Antiquity. Oh, and then there's Archaeological Record. That's like a little magazine type of thing. Yeah. So that's probably the most practical. It's the most expensive too, but you get 3 journals out of it, and it's just good to stay abreast of that kind of stuff. And a lot of us just don't, because, it's hard to keep up on that stuff. And just getting a membership doesn't mean you have to go to the conference and spend $2,000 doing that, but you will get the journals and access to all that stuff if you do that. So that's a good one.
Yeah. I didn't even think of it until you mentioned it here, but, or you didn't mention this, but it just made me think that, related to it is membership. If you've got a local museum, historical museum, anthropological museum, Native American museum, whatever, a gift membership to one of those is kind of 2 birds with 1 stone, because it's not just a gift to the person that you're giving it to, but it's also helps keep those kinds of places afloat. So that's something that I think is worthwhile considering.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
And the last thing that I've got on here in this $50 to $100 bracket is I put Kindle, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a Kindle. It could be any of a number of different e-readers, but you're an e-reader guy, aren't you?
Yeah. I read I use iBooks and a couple other apps that are available on the Apple devices, because it goes between my phone and my tablet pretty seamlessly. So yeah, I definitely use it. And in fact, the Kindle app is on there too. So
right. Yeah. No, I've had, I used to have the Nook, and I've had a couple different Kindles, and I'm not a heavy reader. I'm a very slow, tedious reader. And so it bothers me, but I do like that, to have a lot of stuff on my Kindle. I came into the city tonight because I've got to go physically into work tomorrow. And so I brought my Kindle along, and I think I'm going to read one of Bill White's books on it tonight.
Nice.
Nice. This is we're not breaking any new ground telling people here, get yourself a Kindle or some other kind of electronic reader, and you can carry an entire library to last you the entire field season just in one small, fairly inexpensive device. So I just wanted to remind people that that's something that if that archaeologist in your life doesn't have one, they probably will still appreciate it.
Well, and people might think, I think the big selling point behind one of these things, because you're right, nearly everyone has a smartphone and they can get just about any e-reader app and read books on it, right? So that's not groundbreaking news. But I think the big thing behind these for people that travel a lot and maybe camp a lot and have the combination of limited means and limited storage capacity in your car, traveling around, whatever you're doing, why would you get another device? Well, like I'm just looking, if you look at the link that we put in the show notes at the very top of the page, as long as Amazon's still sorting it that way, is the Kindle Paperwhite. And it says now waterproof with twice the storage. It says ad supported, which means you see ads, but guess what? If you're offline, you just read your books. You don't see any ads. But anyway, and it comes in a couple of colors. But the cool thing about this is when it says the Kindle Paperwhite, if you're somebody that reads a lot, reading at night in the hotel room or in a tent or in your car or something like that, your eyes are going to get pretty strained on a tablet or a smartphone or something like that. I mean, I read, but I don't read a lot when I'm doing that. I'll read for 10, 15 minutes or something like that, just at night. I mean, I'll read more during the day if I have time, but if I'm doing it at night before bed. And like my wife, I really need to get her one of these because she reads on her iPad for sometimes, I'll wake up at 1:30 in the morning. She's still reading. So she just can't put it down. But these Paperwhite ones, they're a lot easier on the eyes. They're still backlit, but they're more, it's almost like a backlit page of a book. It's hard to explain, but it's not like looking at one of these tablets with the glass screen and just like the super bright LEDs. Even if you turn it all the way down, it still has a different wavelength of light than say these Paperwhite ones do. And not only that, but these can last up to 30 days or more on a charge. Yeah. So because you're typically not using it for anything and it's a pretty low power device. So it's really super efficient from that standpoint.
And they also have, as opposed to say, you've got your tablet because you've got to use it for your work, as opposed to reading that book, that novel that you want to wind down at the end of the day on the same thing that you do all your work on, having it on a separate device gives you a little bit of separation. They don't have pop-ups telling you that you just got an email. Nobody's going to try to FaceTime you on your Kindle.
Yeah.
So mentally just going to a different device for a lot of people, myself included, means I'm switching off one thing and switching on to something else. And so maybe that's kind of the same thing like watching the Netflix via the Roku on the TV versus watching it on your laptop.
Yeah.
You just get a little more comfortable and you can feel a little more human about the way that you're using these tech tools. And even though, I'm a techie and have been for my whole life and have been earning a living for my entire adult life as a techie, understanding how you can manipulate the tech devices you've got so that you're not always staring tech in the face, even if literally you are looking at a technological device like a Kindle, helps kind of set up these sort of boundaries in your world.
Yeah.
So that it doesn't feel like the constant flood, the constant fire hose that we're dealing with every time you're on your cell phone.
We've talked about work-life balance a lot on like the Sierra Mark podcast and things like that. And a lot of times that's in reference to time and space. Like, you know, if you work from home, which a lot of us are doing right now, but if you work from home and you're able to do that, having that space in your house where you work versus the space in your house where you don't work helps you mentally switch. But I never even thought about device switching that way, because I'm on my phone all day. I'm on my iPad all day. I'm on my computer all day. And if I wanted to switch off, I mean, that almost makes me want to buy a Kindle, to be honest, because it really would feel like you're doing something else. Honestly, I have a bunch of iPad minis still because I always have them for like, you know, field text when we work. And I use an iPad mini for reading. Like I can easily use one of my other devices, but I didn't even realize that it was giving me that comfort that it's not plugged into everything else. Like I've shut everything else on this separate iPad off, and all I use it for is reading. And that's, man, I didn't even realize what that was doing, but that's such a good point.
Yeah. Being able to carve out that headspace is really important, and learning how to do that as we all become more and more digital in our worlds, I think is going to be an important, you know, survival skill.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. Well, we're going to go to segment 3 now, and I think you guys know what's coming. You better get your drinks poured and get comfortable because it's the drone segment. Back in a second. You may have heard my pitch for membership. It's a great idea and really helps out. However, you can also support us by picking up a fun t-shirt, sticker, or something from a large selection of items from our TeePublic store. Head over to arcpodnet.com/shop for a link. That's arcpodnet.com/shop to pick up some fun swag and support the show. All right, welcome back to episode 143 of the Architect Podcast. It's our holiday gift guide, and you guys know this podcast. You've been around for a while if you've been listening to this, and we're going to talk about our slightly more expensive gifts. We've got a $100 to $200 range, which we'll do first, but then the sky's the limit range, you know, is going to include drones. So, in fact, there's drone stuff in this other segment. So,
so $100 on up drone gifts. Is that the idea now?
That's the idea.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm going to slot one in this $100 to $200 range for drone stuff that I should have put in one of the cheaper ranges, but we'll get to that.
Okay, so I'm going to cover this first one here, and it's not going to be drones, but it's going to be by a company that's most known for their drones. What I'm talking about is a product called the DJI OM4 or OM4. I don't know if it's supposed to be pronounced. And it's a phone gimbal. So if you take your cell phone, you put in this clamp, and it acts like a Steadicam. So you can use it for filming. And I thought that this would be useful for a lot of people. You know, there are a lot of people that are in YouTube streaming, different kinds of videography in the field. And I thought that this, for any kind of nascent content producer, would be a very useful tool. And actually, I'm recommending this particular thing. It costs about $150 because my daughter's birthday, well, it's actually next week, but I bought her an early birthday gift so that she could finish up some film projects that she was doing. She's a dance and choreography major, and she wanted to film herself. And she'd been doing that all over the summer with a little tripod, you know, one of those flexible leg tripods with her camera mounted in it. And she'd set it out in the backyard and dance in front of it. But this here is not just a Steadicam, which it is, but also has additional functions like subject tracking. So she can now set it up and move about the room and have it follow her if that's the effect that she wants. And that seemed really pretty cool. Now, $150 isn't cheap, but this is DJI. So, you know, it's high quality, well thought out, supported. That's important. Piece of equipment that'll last at least a few years, provided that you treat it nicely. It seems fairly rugged, so I don't think it's going to fall apart anytime soon. But I just wanted to put that out there, that if that's something that might intrigue the archaeologist videographer in your life, and $150 isn't too rich for that gift, I think that they would get a big old kick out of that. Yeah,
and if you look at the whole the OM, the O must stand for Osmo because it's in the Osmo series.
Exactly.
So yeah, maybe it's just Osmo, OM. I don't really know. Anyway, Osmo mount. I don't know what they were going for there. They're Chinese. Who knows?
Let me just interject. The Osmos are the built-in cameras. It's basically like the camera on the front of the DJI drone built into a tripod or a handheld stick recorder of some kind. Those are more expensive.
Yes, but mostly because the Osmo Mobile 3, I've got the Osmo Mobile like 1 or something like that, the first one they came out with, that I really do. It's just got a clamp that I hook onto my phone, and then it's a gimbal. It's nowhere near as convenient as the Ohm 4, which I think I'm going to buy right now, because honestly, the original Osmo Mobile, the battery life is shot on. I've had it for like 3 or 4 years, and it's just not convenient to use. But they've gotten so much better, and I kind of forgot about them because we've got a couple GoPro Hero 8s that we bought for our travels this year. But now that my wife and I both have iPhone 12s, and it's like, these are really competitors to that kind of video shooting. And just to be able to pull this out and quickly, use your phone to do a bunch of shooting. I mean, the GoPro is nice, but it's a process, you got to get it out. The battery doesn't last forever, and it's like, you got to be ready with it. But the phone's literally always in my pocket, and this thing could be nearby, and you just slap it on with a little magnetic clip and you go. So it's pretty cool. I like it. As
opposed to GoPro, oftentimes the way they use the GoPro is you'll turn it on, you'll sync it to your phone, link it up to your phone and use it like that. This cuts out a whole step because you're not linking anything to your phone. It is your phone.
Right. Yeah. And you can't, if it's like the old Osmo 1, you can download the DJI app, and then you can have some extra special features that would go along with it. I'm not really sure. I'd have to look into this, and they might not have done that at this level. That being said, it still is just a stabilizing gimbal that really gives you some high quality shots with your phone. So either way, you can't go wrong. So, all right. Well, the other one that's in this little category here is the Part 107 drone certificate lessons, $150 to $200. Now look around, because that doesn't necessarily include the test. You got to go to the FAA. Yeah, you got to go to the FAA to take the test. But this would get you started on classes, because if you want to fly commercially and you want to put this on your CV, you have to. Anytime you're flying anything in this country and you're getting paid for it, I don't care what size of drone it is. I don't care what it is. You hear a lot of stuff like, we're going to talk about the DJI Mavic Mini in a bit here, and it's purposely, I think, 199 or 249 grams or something like that. Whatever it is, it's 1 gram less than the limit at which they say, you jump up into another class of drones. And everybody seems to think, oh, I don't need a Part 107 certificate because it's not heavy enough. That's not true. You could buy a garbage drone at the gas station for $15. And if somebody pays for the pictures you took with it, you now need a Part 107 certificate legally, right? I mean, that's what it is. So it's the same thing with flying, right? You need a commercial pilot's license, and the Part 61 requirement of the FAA regulations says, if you're flying for compensation or hire, so if somebody says, I'll buy you dinner for those pictures, and you're giving them drone pictures, that's compensation, and that's illegal. So
it's different than driver's licenses. People are used to like a Class C driver's license because you're driving commercially, but it's actually the Class C is so you can drive something big.
Right. Exactly.
Because you can drive that Uber without a Class C license. It doesn't work like that with drones.
Yeah.
I mean, it does once you get to a certain weight, but at the weights that we're talking about, that's not how it works. So you have to, if you're getting paid, if you're being remunerated in any way, you have to have, and you're in the US, you have to have that Part 107.
Yeah. And check this out. Just a little quick story as an aside. We follow quite a few YouTubers, and I can't remember which one it was that this just happened to, but they posted a bunch of stuff about it. But they were filming in a national park, which is okay. You can shoot video and stuff in a national park. But somebody turned them in. I think it was somebody that didn't like him or something like that. But they told the national park, or maybe somebody at the national park found out. But basically, since they have so many subscribers and their channel's monetized, the national park hit them with a fine and a ban on national park entrance because they didn't get a filming permit.
Of course.
Because and on top of that, there was drone footage, and you're not supposed to fly a drone in a national park, first off. And second, now the FAA is involved because they don't have a Part 107.
Whoops.
So they're just chilling in their RV in a national park, and they did some drone shots, and they shot a fun video of them doing hiking and stuff like that. And now they're in a world of trouble with both the National Park Service and the FAA.
Wow.
So be careful. Yeah. All right. Well, let's move up the line a little bit here. I want to mention the DJI Mavic Mini, just because we talked about it quite a bit last year when I got the first Mavic Mini that came out. And this is the one, again, I'll have to look it up. It'll be in the notes. But again, it's a light, super light device, and I still have it, and I love it. And I was coming from the DJI Inspire Pro, which is like a professional grade $5,000 drone. Great and all, but you can't fly that thing anywhere. You can't get it out. The case was bigger than my suitcase. It's just like, what do I do with this thing? Right. It's almost too much drone. And for what I was using, but this Mini, I mean, I can take it in its case with 3 extra batteries and the radio and throw it in my backpack or throw it in my wife's purse or throw it anywhere. And it weighs virtually nothing. It lasts an hour and a half with the 3 batteries on their charges. And I put a 256 gigabyte high speed micro SD card in there, and I can shoot 4 or 5 hours worth of footage on that. And it's just ridiculous. I mean, for the price, $399 up to $499, depending on what package you get. I think you can get away with it for about $400. And it's probably cheaper now. I haven't even looked now that the 2 is out, if they even sell the 1 anymore. But the Mavic Mini 2 upgraded the camera. It's now a 4K camera like it should have been to begin with. And it's using some more intelligent flight modes from DJI. It just got smarter, basically. It's got a lot more intelligent wind handling, because that's the one downside to the smaller drone is it can't handle as much wind. And that's just physics, right? It's not heavy enough to handle as much wind, but they've added a lot more sophisticated programming to it to be able to compensate, because that thing is rocking and rolling in the wind sometimes, even a 10, 15 mile an hour wind, but the video is just like steady as can be. And now they've increased the amount of wind that it will not complain about, because it will complain on screen. It'll say it's too windy, land now. I can't handle this. But now they've increased the amount of wind that it can handle. So you really can't go wrong with the Mavic Mini 2 or the Mavic Mini 1 if you can find one of those on sale. And they're just great, affordable drones. So
sky's the limit. Let's keep on going up. Do you want to talk about more drones, or do you want to talk about some different kind of expensive, high price gift that you're giving for that very special techie archaeologist in your life?
I mean, I definitely have more drones to talk about, but let's switch gears for a minute and talk about one of the other things on the list.
All right. Well, you put the Apple Watch Series 6 on here. That's not the next one up in price. In fact, it's less than the Mavic Mini 2. But why don't you tell us why you put that there?
Well, I put it there because, first off, it's the newest Apple Watch. And if you're going to buy something like this, you're kind of making a commitment. So if you can afford the newest one, it'll just last you longer. That's just math right there. I mean, that's what it's going to do. It's going to be forward compatible for longer than if you bought, say, the Series 4. And I think you can get a 3 for pretty cheap these days, a couple $100. But you're not going to have some of the features that you're really going to need or use as an archaeologist. If you just want a timepiece that you can get email notifications on, then great, get the cheaper one. But like this newer one here, I mean, it's fully waterproof down to many, many meters, more than you need to be concerned with. And the altimeter and barometer I've talked about before on this show with the compass feature is just phenomenal. And you don't get that with the other ones because they've added extra hardware in here for doing this. It's got other safety features. And my Series 4 had part of this as well, but this one's just kind of beefed it up a little bit. It's got fall detection. If you fall, they've got metrics in here that say, if you don't respond, like I actually caught the lip of my watch on the corner of a wall in my RV and it slapped back on my wrist. And then all of a sudden my watch started buzzing like crazy. And I looked at it and there was a countdown for calling 911.
Oh my goodness.
And because it thought I fell over. And if you don't respond, it's going to call 911, which is the whole point. Because typically if you fall and maybe you got knocked out or, you're hurt and you can't do anything, it's simply just going to call 911 for you. Similarly with like the EKG meter, stuff like that, if you have an irregular heart rhythm or something, it will notify you and say, hey, this isn't standard for what you normally have. Should we call a hospital right now? Something like that. So it's got a lot of really cool safety features and it's just a great device and I think a good work companion. It's not just a timepiece and a notification machine. They do a lot more independently nowadays. Cool.
Yeah, I've resisted getting an Apple Watch myself for the biggest reason, and this is silly, but it's actually, it affects me, is that when I wear a watch, I've always worn them on the inside of my wrist.
Yeah.
And those sensors that they have in them, they tell you explicitly you need to wear it on the outside.
Yeah, they're designed for that.
Yep.
You're right.
So, and that's, again, it's kind of silly, but your point also about maybe not buying the older model if you can afford it actually kind of hit home today. One of my coworkers was asking, he had a first generation Apple Watch.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
yeah,
can I sync this with my phone anymore? And it turns out, no, he couldn't.
Wow, it wouldn't even sync to the phone. That's crazy.
Yeah, he couldn't use it anymore. I mean, it's basically a dumb watch at this point.
Yeah.
A good looking, at one time, very expensive dumb watch. Well, they used to be smart and got stupid.
You know, you can look too, because I was just looking for a link for this, and a Verizon ad is up here on the screen that says when you buy a new iPhone, you can get the Apple Watch Series 6 for $100 off the retail price. They're not giving them away yet, but you can get a discount on it. So if you're getting a new phone, you know, and you're going with Verizon or something like that, take a look at the deal, and maybe you can get the watch for a little bit cheaper.
Yeah.
So
I'm just going to, the last time we did a gift guy and bide, I am just really knocking it out of the park tonight.
Nice.
Gift guying bide was 3 years ago. And
you did it again.
I know, I did it on purpose that time.
Oh, okay. This is going to be fun to edit.
No, just leave that in.
Of course.
Thank you. Just edit out everything that isn't my weird pregnant pauses and ums and such, and just make that a super track.
That's right.
So it'll be yeah. So I talked about good camera, and I think I got myself a little garbled last time I was talking about them. And I'm not going to go into any real detail here, but just to say that, you know, a camera, if you've got somebody that's a bit of a shutterbug, a good mirrorless camera, not top of the line or anything, starts at about $500 for a decent kit. And that gives you the advantages of an SLR in that you can change lenses, you can buy new lenses, telephotos, wide angles, macros, whatever. It's they tend to be smaller and lighter than DSLRs, so they're more easy to travel with. And there are a variety of them. So $500 on up, don't leave that off the list, because if you got a shutterbug, especially, you know, I stopped playing with real cameras, even though I was a real big shutterbug in my youth, actually, even as an adult, because of the phones, because we all had a very good camera in our phones. And there's this old saying, you know, the best camera is the camera that you have, the camera you have with you, right? And we all have the phones, and so therefore we all have the best camera. And to a certain extent, that's true. And as those cameras get better, there's less and less that you can't do. Does that make sense? Maybe. With your cell phone, right? But for me, the same way that I was telling you, Chris, about, you know, carving out a little mental space to read on the Kindle as opposed to reading on my cell phone or my computer, when I grab that decent camera of mine, I go into a different headspace. I see the world a little differently. I get a lot more joy in just taking pictures and thinking about how I'm going to compose a shot and how I might edit it and who I'll show it for. So again, this is for the creatives in your life, but you know, there is a lot of crossover between techies and photographers and creatives and archaeologists. So just keep that one on the table if that's anywhere in your price range. Yeah, for sure. And I linked to just the mirrorless cameras section basically on Amazon, so you can at least start there. And you know, most of these are Amazon links because it's easy, but definitely shop around. You know, I mean, a lot of times Amazon's the best value, but some people are a little opposed to Amazon for some various reasons, which I understand. But you know, click on it, use it to do your research, and then go buy it wherever you want to go buy it. And for a lot of the things that we're recommending today, places like Adorama and B&H Photo have the exact same pricing that Amazon does. Right. So if it's just strictly a price matter and you're more comfortable with one of those companies, go ahead, do that instead. Okay. All right. Well, the last two things that we actually have on the list here, I'll just mention real quick because we're pretty much out of time. The Bose frames we've talked about. We can just look those up on our website. I've definitely talked about them pretty extensively. Just was wearing them yesterday. Still love them. They're great.
They're basically headphones inside of a pair of sunglasses, if you didn't hear that episode. And they're from Bose. And they sound really good. Not a lot of bleed over for people around you. Not super great in really loud environments, like your car, for example. Well, I shouldn't say cars are usually pretty quiet, but like my RV, that engine is sitting right next to me, that V10. I can't hear a damn thing with those Bose frames, so I got to put something else in. But out in the field, it's great. Works really well and keeps your ears exposed so you can do stuff. So check those out. They're $249. And then also I put
Before you do that,
yeah,
I'm glad that you put on the list, because I was just thinking yesterday before I saw you put this on our list about those Bose frames, and I wanted to ask you, you're still using them, huh?
Oh yeah, I love them.
Excellent.
I don't use them all the time because, to be honest, they slip off my face a little too easy, and I actually bought a little strap that I can tighten to keep them on the back of my head, because they're the type of plastic they are. If I'm wearing them to go for a jog or work out or something like that, when my head starts to get sweaty, they start to fall off. So, no. And because I have that little strap on there, I tend to just pull my other sunglasses out, my regular ones, when I don't need that, you know what I mean? So, but I definitely use them for working out, for biking, for going for a walk or something like that. I really like them. So they're great. Cool. Yeah. Man, I'm seeing some refurbished ones already for $130. So check that out. That's pretty cool. Anyway, so we'll link to that as well. But the last thing I had on there was the Mavic Pro 2, and the particular bundle that I'm linking to on Amazon just has a whole bunch of extras. I think normally it's about $1,200. This one's closer to $1,500. The Mavic Pro 2 is a little bit bigger than the Mavic Mini in physical size, but way bigger in weight. And that's what you're really getting. You're getting the radar avoidance, blah, 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 all that stuff. But really what you're getting is something that can handle much higher wind speeds, and just has a better camera, better stability, better everything. It's the Mavic Mini on steroids. So if you can afford it, if you can get your company to pay for it, great. It's going to be a good device. It's metal. You can strap the props together and throw that thing in your backpack without a case, and it will handle it. So it's just a phenomenal device especially if you can use it for work and you can write this thing off and use it for that. I wouldn't suggest getting something like this unless you got a whole bunch of disposable income. I wouldn't suggest getting something like this just to play with, because it really isn't a toy. If you want something that's more of a toy that's just fun and you can take great video, get the Mavic Mini 2. That's still $500 or $400 if you don't get the extras with it, but that's also a great drone and you can do that. So yeah, so we put it on there just for fun, but would be good for a business to own. That's the one I would get if I was using it for work purposes. Cool. Yeah. Well, I think that's about it. We went long on some of those segments, but a lot of fun stuff to talk about. The one thing I didn't mention was, I've mentioned it so many times before, but if you do have somebody that wants to learn how to fly drones, definitely buy them a cheap drone, right? Oh, yeah. Get them something cheap with a radio, not something that you control with your smartphone, because you don't learn the finger actions on that, but you got to have a 4-channel radio, and you can get these small drones. They might even have a camera on it, but you don't care. Get them a $30 drone with no camera so they can just learn to fly and crash into a wall. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I started doing, and I first got one, and it was $15 back then. The thing still is alive, 3 years later. Well, that's impressive. I can't use it because my dog hates it. It drives him insane. But yeah, there you go. Oh, this was a lot of fun, Chris. I hope that Rachel listened and has some ideas for you now. She did not, but hopefully she edits this and will listen. So yeah, pay attention. There you go. All right. So, all right, man. Well, thanks a lot. Thanks everybody. And let us know what you got for your holiday gifts, if you got any, and what you think about it. And maybe we'll bring you on to do a quick little user review. So, all right. Awesome. Well, again, thanks everybody. And thank you, Paul. Happy holidays. Yep. Are you not saying wash your hands anymore? Oh, geez. I forgot all about it. Yeah. Wash your hands, socially distance, wear your mask when you go out, please. That's right. We're getting into that bad time of year, and we want to keep people as healthy as possible. There you go. All right, everybody. Thanks. Thanks for listening to the Archaeotech podcast. Links to items mentioned on the show are in the show notes at www.arcpodnet.com/archaeotech. Contact us at chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com and paul@lugal.com. Support the show by becoming a member at arcpodnet.com/members. The music is a song called Off-Road and is license free from Apple. Thanks for listening. This episode was produced by Chris Webster from his RV Traveling America, Tristan Boyle in Scotland, and the Archaeology Podcast Network, and was edited by Chris Webster.
This has been a presentation of the Archaeology Podcast Network. Visit us on the web for show notes and other podcasts at www.archpodnet.com. Contact us at chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com.
Thanks again for listening to this episode and for supporting the Archaeology Podcast Network. If you want these shows to keep going, consider becoming a member for just $7.99 US a month. That's cheaper than a venti quad eggnog latte. Go to archpodnet.com/members for more info.